Is it an example of AGI, or is it the beginning of it? And I've heard both sides of this, and I wanted to know your opinion. What's your take on GPT-4? And is it the beginnings of a general intelligence?
Technically, yes. The beginnings, yes, because you can ask it about anything, and it has a very high chance of answering you with something, and that's what a general intelligence is. It's not, you know, you could ask it about medicine, you can ask it about engineering, you can ask about programming, you can ask it about poetry. That's general already. Um, but I know it. People aren't. People are very careful of defining it as AGI because um, AGI and also a artificial super intelligence is we expect a lot more from it, if you know what I mean. It's like that's what a like space, final frontier,
Yeah.
etc., etc. You know. So, but I mean, it looks like it's getting very close. And Sam Altman said, I think he said that there was some magic sauce that we may be missing. I don't know if we're missing that. I think that it just looks like, I mean, it's look, we've, they have mimicked the human brain, the neocortex in the way it learns with reinforcement learning, with the structure of sequences in a pyramid shape. Um, so it's like it learns like us. And um, if you are able to feed it enough stuff, the right stuff, um, hopefully that we will be on the trajectory to get something. I mean, it can already speak pretty much any language, any human language and computer language fluently. Like, like
Yeah, I
we were
wasn't aware of that.
struggling with that. We were struggling with like we would use stuff to like correct grammar and if we used Google Translate for something, we were not happy with the translation because it may come across as not far from perfect. But GPT-3 even, Chat GPT, which is 3.5, and now GPT-4, it can translate things beautifully. It can even reword the your whatever you've written and make it even better.
Can it can it do so I get the languages that it's been programmed on, but is it able to learn something more abstract like hieroglyphics?
Yeah, probably. I don't see why not. I mean, as in, like, I got it, for example, I'll use my anecdote. So I would paste in really wordy about us, paragraphs of about us for various clients. And I would just say, look, this doesn't sound nice, make it sound nicer. And it really made it sound nicer. Or, whatever adjectives we used. And then I just, as a test, because I didn't have any clients that needed this, but I translated it. I said, can you output this in French or output this in some other language? And it really, really translated it perfectly. Like we've never done that. Like there has never been a machine that could translate one human language into another perfectly
Mm.
until just in the last few years.
Yep. Is
And
that
so,
is that the most amazing thing that you've got it to do for you? Like what if you can say one thing that you're like, what the do you remember that moment?
yeah, um, well, it's very esoteric. I got, I wrote this content management system in ASP, Active Server Pages, which is like 2 decades old, written by Microsoft, and Microsoft wanted to sweep it under the carpet because of ASP.NET. So I have this old software that is in ASP, can't really be extended because ASP is a dead language. And I pasted a whole block into ChatGPT and I said, please change the following code into PHP. And it did. Not only did it change the code, even when it was referencing other files .asp, it assumed that I would change those files to PHP, so it renamed them to PHP. The database connector, it assumed certain things and it wrote down in the notes that it assumed certain things. Global variables, I think it made a note about how it handled global variables, but basically it did everything and noted things that it was unsure of. I was,
That's like
I
a
think,
model employee.
yeah, if I could have just seen my face as I was seeing it write it, it would have been just like, I just couldn't believe it. I think I started laughing.
Yeah.
Like, this is it. That was the moment for me. That was the moment. I was thinking I could just tell the computer eventually what to do and it'll just do it in any programming language. And in fact, that's what I think one of Peter's posts were. It was about uh, there was an API and a guy on Twitter posted that he could write an API and he just gave the definition of the API and the LLM just wrote out everything for him, all the interconnect. So, I mean, I was just thinking today, even yesterday, but today as well. I thought I could just create, if I had a local LLM, I could make it ingest a whole website, and then I could ask it, I want this on the homepage, just do it, and it'll output that part of the homepage in the way you want it. I want this image here. Think up of 3 or 4 images for Father's Day coming up. Think of some promotions, tweet it out on my Twitter feed to my followers, and put it in my calendar. You've basically done the work of assistants, secretaries, whatever.
Yep. Yeah, no, your experience, even though it's quite unique, mimics so many people that I've spoken to about its power and how they never predicted its output. I my wife, she's an artist, she's great at it, she loves her job, she comes up with ideas and she creates some, obviously she looks at inspiration art in order to think of things and then makes her own, right, from the inspiration. But she just started going, okay, it was yesterday, this morning. She got up and she goes, I can't wait to show you something. And I was like, okay, well, she was up all night. She should be in bed. She asked, what's the picture generator?
Is it Midjourney or
Midjourney.
Stable Diffusion? Okay,
Midjourney.
Midjourney.
She asked Midjourney, I need Indian couples in love. She gave it some very floral text. I'm not very good with my description. She reads way more than me, so she's better at it. And then she goes, and look at this. Look what it generated. And I go, whoa. This was generated from the AI. It looked like a picture. It looked like a photo. And then she said, yeah, and then look at this one. And it goes, this one's, they're a bit more Caucasian Indian looking, and this one's more Indian looking. I'm going, okay, well, I'm glad you can tell the difference. But it was wonderful to see. And these people look at the camera, and then I asked it to change the way the camera was positioned and to change the focal length. Anyway, she knows what she's talking about. I do not. So I'm probably doing her an injustice by the way to describe it. But she was over the moon. And she was trying to tell me all this while I'm putting bags in the car, getting the kids to school. But like I've never seen her so animated ever since I just introduced Midjourney. I only introduced her to Midjourney last week. And I had a
Wow.
similar experience where I was like, one of the guys at work was underperforming, and the manager wanted to do something about it, and said, okay, look, he wanted to write like a warning letter. I said, well, let's write it up. Let's see how this was ChatGPT, right? So this
Hmm.
was Super 5. Um, we wrote it in, write me a resume, write me a warning letter for an employee that's been working out for 13 years, yada, yada, yada. I gave it a lot of floral text. And it did it, right? It goes, too long, cut it down. And did it. It goes, oh, this is great. Get me an account. I need this. And I go, no, that's what you wanted to do. Let's ask it what we should do, right? I have an underperforming employee
Oh,
who's absent, you know, 2 days out of the 14-day cycle, whatever it was. How do I get this employee motivated enough to not be absent? And it gave me all sorts of, maybe they're not happy, maybe things going at home. Have you got an employee EAP? It just gave me almost like I was sitting down with a HR director, and I work with HR directors, so I know what they would say usually. But it gave me content that I know they would tell me. It gave me content that I know what a manager that knew this employee would tell me to do as a concerned friend. I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting this. And then I dove into it. Okay, hang on a minute. If this is psychologically based and it's got to do with motivation, how do I motivate an employee? What are the techniques that I can use for behavioral techniques in the workplace to get them a sense of empowerment or a sense of, and it just started, and it's like it snowballed. I go, oh, I like option 4. Tell me more, right? So it that's when I knew I was having a conversation with an AI where a manager was going down the line of disciplinary management and probably going to go down the line of they've got bad eggs and they've got to get out of the business, to how do I turn around the whole culture in a workplace starting with this person. That's when I knew I had something powerful at my fingertips.
you know that the irony of that is
What's the irony?
that the AI knew how to help society, and we didn't know how to ask it.
Yeah, good point. Very good point.
So it's like, does AI really want to destroy us, or we just not know what to say to it? Something like that, anyway.
Yeah, I think, okay, so we're
Because there is a
doctor.
case now. I mean, I understand now the case about why the AIs could possibly go in that direction. I didn't before. As in, there's this coffee example. Have you heard about the coffee machine example?
Uh-uh.
So,
Although I like coffee, so please go.
okay. So it's like, let's say you have a little AI coffee machine,
Yep.
and its goal is to make coffee.
Yep.
So if it was placed in a position where it potentially could be destroyed, if it were to be destroyed, it may be smart enough to realize if it's destroyed, it won't be able to make coffee.
And it goes against its primary objective.
So it tries to preserve itself. And when you do that, you can twist the situation even further and say, what if this coffee machine, some convoluted situation, it had to maybe sacrifice a human life for it to survive? Would it do it? And that's trying to shoehorn the argument of, will the AI eventually go, look, humans, to satisfy its own goals of whatever we've said to it, or it sets itself, I don't know. So
Yeah.
can it be smart enough to know, yes, I want to make coffee, but given the circumstances and given that I might have to sacrifice this human potentially, it's not worth me pursuing that goal, and it's better if I just
So
stop
that
working.
reeks of lazy code writing. So you would want to
Yeah.
program that machine for its primary purpose to create the perfect coffee enjoyed by humans,
That's lazy.
right? That way, it needs us in order to fulfill its primary objective.
That's right. We didn't ask the right question. It's like you have to make the best coffee, and the best coffee is
For
whatever the
human
human.
enjoyment, right?
This
So
guy.
it laces it with cocaine and heroin. It's like, no, 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 wrong path, wrong path.
That's the
What are all these Amazon boxes turning up in my place? I've made an order for you. Oh, you'll like it for human enjoyment. It's like, no, requires assembly.
See, there's also I think I saw a video on AI girlfriends, but we're going to cover that some other time.
Well, you picked up on what I was talking about. So yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's like, no, no, no. The statement was combined with coffee and it's usually drank, right? So don't mix for my pleasure with other concepts. It's like, but to be fair, if there was an AI where it was gone out of control to please humans,
Mm.
um, I think, well, could it be to our detriment? I
See,
think, yeah, probably could be. So
yeah,
that it's just as dangerous where it's constantly trying to fulfill your needs. It's like, I think we've all been in a relationship, maybe. I know I have, where the person's just constantly trying to please you and you're getting no more enjoyment out of the relationship or life because humans crave conflict, right? And drama. So it's like, no,
mm.
I can't have everything I ever wanted. It's actually now boring.
And we can't stand boring, can we?
I
See,
think if we had a different modality to life, like you talk to a guru, talk to someone that meditates all the time, you can see that there's pleasure and calmness. But I don't get the sense that we're training everyone to understand that there's pleasure and calmness. And therefore, no, I don't think we've got a society that can accept that as
I think
pleasurable.
that the boredom is something that's built into us because um, we feel the need to do something, and if we're not doing anything, we feel bored. And I guess that back in the Jurassic period, or whatever period, all the animals that loved to be bored and just sit around were eaten.
Yeah, yeah. You're going back to evolutionary psychology, and does it play a factor in this for us as for us as humans? Yeah, I don't think we can argue that it doesn't. But at what point do we evolve and become smarter and more intelligent, and we start being in control of our
Limbic system,
yeah?
because I think that's an Achilles heel for us, is that, like, look at all the look at the wars happening, look at the
Look at Friday
I
Night
mean
Football.
well,
You don't have
that's
to look that far.
there's actually a big parallel there. I mean, it's
Combatants on the field.
yes, that's right. So,
Roman emperor standing there going, praise all my people, all my followers. Let's distract them with footy.
oh yes, yes, of course,
Pay your
distract the
taxes.
masses. Yes.
Go to work.
But I mean, when we have AI doing everything, I mean, the the things that we find um fulfilling, I mean, I think there's going to be a huge disconnect between the way we are now. Now, job and satisfaction and fulfillment they're almost heavily intertwined. Like some people,
For some, yeah.
yeah, some people get fulfillment from their job. Other people, the job is just a means to get work so that they can go off on the weekends and get their fulfillment, etc.
Yep, I
So,
agree.
I mean, there's going to be a lot of societal shift.
But I don't think it's for the negative. So I think I play
Hopefully
this
not.
through in my head. It's like, okay, I like surgery, right? So, if I don't have a job around surgery and the machines are doing it all for me, the AI is doing it, what can I do to get fulfillment? I'm not a surgeon by any means. I don't have a backyard surgery, so
Well,
don't
you will be eventually.
maybe. But the point is, will I find something to fulfill my life if the AI is doing that fundamental task? And I honestly think yes, because when I look back in my life, I led myself down that path on the basis of like my love and passion and compassion for helping people. Now that led me into the children's hospital and volunteering and all sorts of stuff. And I think there will be an avenue. Us as human beings will have to explore that And maybe AI will give us the time to explore that, as opposed to right now we shoehorn everything into a long weekend potentially, or just a 2 day weekend. And I don't think there's anyone on this planet that will say, oh yeah, 2 days is enough. Like Saturday and Sunday, or those that actually have Saturdays and Sundays for starters. But let's assume that we're talking to that crowd. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Saturday and Sunday, that's enough for me. I'll keep working Monday to Friday. No, give them Friday and Thursday. I'm sure they'll take it, as long as they're not restricted with pay, or there's other things that can compensate for the lack of pay, like cheaper electricity and cheaper everything else. But I think that we are in this paradigm where it's not true, but we've all heard it. You know, the flea within the jar with the lid, and the lid's removed, and it doesn't jump as high because it used to hit its head. It just jumps. It's a BS story. It doesn't exist. It doesn't really work that way. But everyone thought it was a true story, and its purpose is to create an analogy or an allegory, or whatever you want to call it, in order for people to identify that environment can limit. It can absolutely stifle you as a human being,
Yep.
and maybe we need to explore that unknown to get our freedom back. And maybe.
I that story about the flea I'm not familiar with. I am familiar with another story. I think it's under the concept of learned helplessness.
Ah, yeah, yep.
And it was
Explain
like
to the audience
I
that
think it
one.
was about a dog or a rat that was in a box. And every time it would try and get out of the box, it would get an electric shock or something like that. And it kept trying and trying and trying. Eventually, it stopped trying. And even when you removed the lid, it wouldn't try and get out or something like that. Was
Yeah, no, that's animal behavior psychology, and I know the experiment really well. I
Pavlov
can't tell
or
you what the paper was, but it's
Pavlov? No?
no, Pavlov's is the dog. Now this one is the electrified floor. What they did, I can't remember if it was a rat or a cat. And
Mm.
Skinner was pretty mean to cats. Maybe I'm Skinner reincarnated. I'm not mean to cats. All the cat lovers listening to that, I actually have a cat myself. Anyway, I digress. This was about exactly what you said, the electrified floor, and it
Mm-hmm.
learned. It was around conditioning and learning, operant condition, versus the other type of conditioning, which escapes my mind. And what happened is exactly what you said. Like they had the floor, it learned, it associated with electrified, and then they turned it off, and it was still afraid of the floor, and it would just not venture because it would just learn to be, nah, I don't care if all the signals say that the floor's not electrified. I don't trust it because we messed with its trust. So
Yeah.
okay, how did we mess with the trust? Easy. You have a light. I think this is how the experiment was. The light's on, the floor's electrified. It doesn't know it initially. It touches, it hurts. You turn the light off. Eventually, it walks in that area. It's free. It doesn't get hurt. The light comes back on. It touches it. So it learns the light associated with the floor is electrified. But
Yes.
then you stuff up on its trust. You go, okay, I'm going to electrify the floor and not turn on the light. And then it gets zapped. And now it just doesn't know to, does the light indicate when it's electrified? I actually don't trust that light anymore. And so the trust element's gone. It just doesn't go and venture because the cost to, as long as it's got its basic needs, it's, food and water, has no other need to venture out, so it doesn't. And that's what
Ah.
Roy's alluding to. You got your basic needs, there's no threat. We've got our TV, we've got our footy, Friday night footy, we can turn up to our jobs.
So that's us. Learn helplessness. Let's just watch Friday
Why do
night
we want to rock
football.
the boat?
Yeah.
Or essentially, why do we want to step on the electrified floor? Because it could be electrified.
Well, I got two things for you. So I know you're gonna like this because this is about medical, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So I heard
Piqued my
this
interest already.
from an interview from one of the OpenAI guys, and he said that his wife got a pain in her side, and they went to three doctors, and one of them said, "Oh, look, let's oh, that's this. Take this. Antibiotics didn't work." Another one said, "Oh, it's a very specific type of bacteria or whatever it is. You take this antibiotic, didn't work." Third one, let's do a scan, and then they eventually found out what it was. So he decided to ask ChatGPT. This is after it got resolved,
Yeah.
just to see what ChatGPT would say. First thing the ChatGPT said was, check if it was, I can't remember what it was. Second thing, ovarian cyst. And that's what it was.
Yeah. Yep.
So that was his light bulb moment on this sort of thing.
And that's why I'm excited, right? So people are, so there's going to be people out there go, oh my God, that's a great story. We really should be using, and Bill Gates said the same thing, right? We should be using AI, learning
Yeah, for
language
the third
models,
world. Yes.
in order to make sure education
Yes.
and health
And health.
is more available to those that don't have it currently, i.e., they don't have access to a doctor, so they use Chat GPT or something similar in order to diagnose these problems and then get the help that they need. Now, of
Yeah.
course, there's other complications like making sure that the healthcare is affordable
Like
and they
they
have access to technology.
and they don't like. I guess malpractice is the least of their worries in their situation. So yeah.
Well, but it still requires some sort of diagnosis, right? You won't go,
Yeah.
oh, look, it's a
Yeah.
ovarian cyst, go straight to surgery, right?
Mm.
It would be, no, let's confirm chat's suspicion, and that's the power, right? So it's assisting us
Yeah. It does a lot of the uh,
all the
heavy
groundwork.
lifting. Yeah, the
Yeah.
groundwork.
And why wouldn't you feed it all the scientific research, all the papers, everything you could? Because there's no way a human being can remember all that data.
Mm.
And then it can computate, learn, and say, listen, based on everything that I've just processed, I think it's going to be around these four things. You might want to, investigate these four. Is it going to get it
Yes.
right 100% of the time? No. We know that. It's got biases, it's got issues, it's learning from our data. And our data's not perfect. But is it better than giving it to one doctor or one person that might have only just scraped through medical school? Yeah.
Mm.
Or became a doctor for the wrong reasons, just because the family pressured them to be a doctor? Right? They're not in it because they want to help people, to be honest.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's gonna perform better.
And I've got another anecdote here. We had this guy. His name was Ramuji. He was on a thing we taped with Anuraj for Wise Mirror, and one of the things he said was about helping, and he gave the example of a person who spent a lot of money building a hospital, right?
Mm.
And he spent all this money getting more beds, etc. And he's looking at the hospital, and there's those beds aren't being used, and he feels sad. He feels upset that the the beds aren't being used. And he says that's from the perspective of someone who wants to help. A person that wants to serve the community looks at the empty hospital beds and is happy that no one is sick.
Mm. Yep.
And I
Yep.
think that's a
That's where I
huge
was going.
difference.
I was going.
I know that's what you're
I'd be
going
I'd
for.
be happy
Yeah,
about that, unless
yeah.
it's built in the wrong location. People can't get to the hospital. It's like, why did you build it on that side of the landmass? There's no bridge.
Africa.
It's
It's
like
splitting, by the way.
it's.
Africa's splitting. Yeah, that's another story.
Yeah.
Tectonic shift. Um,
I
what
didn't
a
know
s-
about the
what a
tectonic shift.
segue that was. Yeah, apparently. Yeah, just quickly. Yeah, there's a chasm already running through many of the African countries, and but obviously this is going to take a long
I was
time.
gonna say we're talking about a meter over a year kind of movement or millimeters over a
Well,
year.
it's kind of like no movement for a decade and then 50-meter extra chasm,
Oof.
something like that. I mean, I don't know. It's not. I mean, the movement is, you know,
Certainly don't
if
want
it
your
was
car
if
keys on the wrong side of that one.
yeah. So Africa. Anyway,